Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the Level 2 recording for January 30th, Lesson 6 of the 2019 semester. So in Level 1, I was just talking about the inner versus the outer and Flying Rainbow Lasagna as this tool for combining together formerly divergent realms and achieving an additional dimension, which means you achieve an additional degree of freedom. So now I'm just looking at my notes for Level 2. This is all about the sun, the stellar network, emitting timelines, and creation of the moment. Okay, good. Last week, I talked about the sun and about how it is. I talked about not just the sun, I talked about the entire stellar network, and also the idea of how stars have a lifespan, like they have a conception, they have a time of metabolizing, they have a time of sending out energy, and then at the end of that time of sending out energy, everything reverses. They collapse back into themselves, and they draw in all of the energy that they have sent out. And this is the basic lifespan of a star. A nebula that coalesces into a star that then metabolizes. It is not merely a dead, stupid nuclear reaction happening in the sky, which is what science would like to describe it to you as. Stars are a consciousness phenomenon, and there are many different stars in the world, and they each have their own particular personality or flavor. And so that means, like, I'm pointing at the window over there. There's the sun, the sunlight is coming in, and we have calibrated to that light being white, and we interpret it as white. It's actually yellow-green. That's because that's the personality structure of our star, whose name is Sol. Different stars have slightly different personality structures, and they're all cool. They're all like beings who have transcended the membranes of death and made it out through the little wormhole. They've done the inner work. So they are manifesting their inner to their outer. Stars are master manifestors. What they do, so stars are also portals. So they're not just a chemical reaction, spewing photons with their willy-nilly hither, thither, and yon. No. Stars are a consciousness phenomenon. They have individuality. They have an individual, like a different flavor. They have unique flavor and a unique personality, and that they are sending out timelines and possibilities. They are literally emanating from their inner potential into the outer manifested reality. Each one of these stars, well, not all stars have planets. When they have a planet, that is in their star system, that's like their painting. It's like their canvas. And upon that canvas, the stars can create different forms of life, which is like painting a scene, painting a motif. And that stars are these amazing artists that are painting these motifs that can be, like you and me, biological structured beings. So in terms of having a conversation with non-terrestrial beings, there might be a being that lives on a planet that makes a clank metal spaceship, hops into its spaceship, and flies to planet Earth and says, "Hi, I am your God, worship me." And that is, first of all, going against the firewall that is supposed to be in existence in terms of consciousness. That the way, just presume from now on, in this whole big setup of, the multi-dimensional cosmos, that everything that you're supposed to be able to do, you can do without accoutrements, without technology, without stuff. Like if you need stuff to do your stuff, you're not supposed to do that stuff. So let's say there's a guy that lives on a planet far away from here who built a magical spaceship and flew in his spaceship here to our planet and then said, "Hi, I'm here. I declare myself a god." That guy is not supposed to be able to get off that surface of that planet if he has to get a metal spaceship, if he has to use any kind of accoutrements, any kind of training wheels. It's the firewall. Let me just get my little sweater too. It's the firewall that has been created as part of the great composer. Great composer is super amazingly wonderful, like the most intelligent genius in the world, and has thought of everything and, really thought about this creation and said, "Hey, wait, I want to make sure that this flavor on the plate doesn't mix with this flavor on the plate prematurely. Like this is not supposed to happen." And, like some things go together, right? Potatoes and gravy, this goes together. But, these two flavors, they don't go together. The life forms from this planet over here do not actually go together with the life forms from this planet over here. They're not actually two great tastes that taste great together. These are not chocolate and peanut butter. These are actually like pickles and peanut butter. They do not belong together. But this guy uses technology to put these flavors together that is not supposed to be part of the music of the world. So that is the problem with technology, is that it allows for organisms to supersede I call them firewalls or limiting factors that were intentionally placed in the structure of reality to help to foster consciousness to grow in a good way that it's supposed to grow. Okay, wait, I'm checking my my notes over here. So if you want to talk to non-terrestrial entities, fantastic. Please do so telepathically on a bridge of love. And I encourage you to focus on the stars themselves. Focus on the artists themselves, not on their little canvases, the planets that they have created around them. So, there's a difference, a qualitative difference between talking to the star, which again is a highly refined, cultivated consciousness that has exited the wormhole. P.S. Spoiler alert, we all become the stars. We're the stars. You're talking to yourself. But anyway, those consciousnesses have exited the wormhole, and they're refined to the point where they are now virtuosos. And all the stuff they've got inside is supposed to be inside, and they become externalizing all the stuff that's inside into these beautiful art projects. But their art projects themselves are not perfected. Like, they might still be in process. Sometimes I have a painting. It's not done. It's in process. I could show you my painting that I'm working on. Sometimes paintings go through an ugly phase. Yeah, I had an art teacher actually a long time ago that said that. Don't be afraid. Class, don't be afraid to let your painting go through an ugly stage. And I think that's good advice for when you are a painter, when you're an artist or creator, that you should allow, without judging and criticizing your own creation as it is ongoing and it's not finished yet, that it might go through an ugly phase, or might need further whatever organization or polishing or whatever. You got to let it sometimes go through that ugly phase. So let's say that the painting of some organisms on some planets, it's going through its ugly phase. You don't want that painting to touch all these other paintings over here. Everything gets cross-pollinated in a way that is not necessarily intentional and good. And this is because of technology. That technology has allowed for bleed through or consciousness transfer or things coming together, pickles and peanut butter that do not actually fit together. That's not the way that they're supposed to be. So that if you want to talk to extraterrestrials, do so on a bridge of love and focus on the extraterrestrials that do not have to use technology to get any place. So that would be the stars themselves. How did the stars get someplace? Well, the stars, let's say they stay where they are in physicality, but their consciousness flows away from them in the form of light and photons. The stars are making timelines flow away from them. They're giving us light and photons, the possibilities and probabilities, the food that feeds us and makes the future happen. That's who you want to be talking to, not the little art project that might be on a far distant planet that might be dependent upon technology. It might be more advanced than you in terms of technology, but it's not the star itself. It is not a highly cultivated, refined persona that has exited the wormhole and is now prepared to be a virtuoso and has done all of the inner cleansing and inner work of like actually doing things properly. And stars influence each other's art projects. So this whole idea of astrology, what was going on in the sky at the moment of your birth? You're an organism on this planet. The great symphony and everything that was being played in the rest of the band at the moment of your birth absolutely affects you and your experience. Like, you're not separate from context. We are absolutely embedded in context. So big emphasis on this point here today. The idea that stars are consciousness. They are portals for consciousness, like a doorway. Stuff is coming through them, not necessarily from them, but through them, kind of like with being a parent, like being a mother, that you gestate life inside of you. The life is coming through you. You have energy, coming from higher dimensional, less dense realms as a baby, and then coming out of you. It comes through you. It doesn't necessarily come from you. So this is a big distinction to make in understanding the stars and the stellar network. Photons come from them. They come through them. They are portals. They're doorways. They're coming from someplace and going to someplace. The photons create reality. They're also sensors of reality. So sensing reality, this is just like being a bat. It uses sonar and echolocation. Bats do not have very excellent physical eyesight. What they do have is very excellent hearing and perception this way. So what they do is they send out little clicks and little sounds that they make. And those sounds emanate outward as waves, bounce off of objects in the environment, and then emanate back towards them. And the bats can do complex calculations about what bounces back to them and what is happening in reality based on what bounces back. And the sun does exactly the same thing. I should draw this so that I'm not just using my mouth parts to describe all of this. Let's draw what a bat does. Go over here. Good. And do this too. What does a bat do? Let's say here is a bat. I'm making like wings. Here's its body. Here's another wing. That is like the most, rudimentary drawing of a bat with some kind of little ears or something like that. So the bat sends out sound waves. Here's sound waves. Sound, sound, sound. And they come outward, and then they might hit an object. Hey, it's this, thing over here. And then the sound waves bounce back off of the object. Let's draw them bouncing back like this to the emanator, and the bat can actually tell all about this object, its shape, its position in space, and what's going on with it based upon what bounces back to it. Now let's use, instead of the bat and an object, the sun. Say this is the sun over here. And the sun sends out photons. And those photons are feelers. They are consciousness feelers. They're a sensory organ of the sun. And if the feelers and the photons do not actually touch any physical matter, this little object over here, if it doesn't touch anything, the photons just simply continue onward indefinitely. They'll make an endless arrow in this direction. They just continue onward. That's what laser light is like. Again, this is the distinction between like the cone of light that comes from a flashlight, where, a regular, ordinary, conventional flashlight, where you have, it's close at the beginning and then it spreads out into a cone at the front. It's because it's a plasma. It's like light forms that are hither, thither, and yon. They are not organized. When they're organized into a beam, like a laser beam, that light will not disperse unless it hits an object. So these are the echoes that the sun or the star is sending out. And when it hits an object, like a planet, you and me, well, it could just be a photon can hit like a speck of dust. That can happen. But let's say that these photons hit an object. They hit the surface of a planet. They might even go inside your eyeball and hit your retina. Those photons become waylaid on their journey. They don't keep going in this direction. And they haven't bounced back over to here. So according to the star that emanated it, it can tell there's something over here. There's something going on over here, because I know I sent out that photon, but it has not been emanated back. What happened to my photon? Well, your photon went into a human being's eyeball and went into their retina and then stimulated their brain. And it gave them an idea, or it gave them perception of light, or it gave them heat, or whatever it did. That photon is now in a human. Or maybe that photon got waylaid on its journey in a leaf. Here's a leaf. Oh, look, I'm photosynthesizing. You know what happens when I photosynthesize? Lots and lots of photons come onto my surface, and I catch them. And I turn them into starches and other good stuff, and people can eat them. Animals can eat them. Everything can eat them. And again, there's nothing wrong with this. I'm not judging this. I'm not saying photons should only flow out endlessly outward and should never be stopped on their journey and should never be. No, that's not it. This is the art project of the sun. This is the art project right here. Where do you think the paint comes from? It comes from the photons of the sun's mind itself that it is sending out there. So, and also, let me make this distinction. If photons come inside of us, either in the form of food, I'm eating my salad. This is so good. Here. Wait, I got my raw cannabis juice from my wonderful garden is in here. I'm drinking my sunlight juice. If you have that inside of you, it's not supposed to just stay inside of you. I drink my juice, and then with my mind, I beam back to the sun the experience of drinking that juice. And the sun or the stars that emanated those photons that got on leaves that became starches and sugars that I put in my blender and made into my juice now receives that information back. I sent out a photon, it became a leaf, Aurora drank it, and then she sent me the mental energy of what that experience was like. And this is the rapport that we are supposed to have between the great artist that's painting the painting of your life and you, the experiencer, painting the life. And of course, I speak all about how you're not just supposed to be an experiencer, you're also supposed to be in rapport. Like, musicians in the band can say to the band leader, like, hey, like we want to change the pace. Or maybe like I can play something really soft. I can play it really hard. Oh my goodness, I made Chica get all upset because I played the music too loud. But you understand, there's some amount of personal interpretation of the musical score. So wait, let me go back to my face. Let me also make sure that I'm getting everything. Okay. So last week I was speaking about what is unconditional love. And I say this all the time. Love is a tone. Love is a tone. And we make that tone when we move through time at one moment per moment. So just like being Pac-Man or Ms. Pac-Man, these little dots, and I'm chomping one moment, the next moment, the next moment. I'm not Pac-Man trying to chomp 12 dots at once or jump over these dots and jump these dots into the future. That's what anxiety is. Want to come up here? Anxiety is literally when you're like, what's going to happen in 5 minutes? What's going to happen? I want to eat the dots of 12 minutes from now, 12 hours from now, 5 years from now. Like you try to, instead of using your telescope to look into the future, use your mind to sense the future. And the mind is not actually a sensory organ. The mind, as I've said, is a human mind at the level of yellow, is a hacked operating system, and it is not an effective organ of perception. It is like a compensatory mode that you can use to navigate the world through reason and logic, but not through perception. So I use the example of, if you came into my studio, I clean things up for this class, but I want you to know, like, I got my sweater on the floor sometimes, coffee cup, whatever. There's stuff all over the place, dog toys. And if you cannot see, and you're using just your reason and your intellect to navigate across the floor, you don't know. You're like, okay, on Wednesdays, Aurora usually leaves her sweater over here, but I'm going to reason it out that it might be over here, and there's a 10% chance it might be over here. That's the intellect and approaching, navigating the time field using the intellect. And what we are supposed to do is turn off the talking mind, and you get enough unconditional love to actually activate the higher faculties and then see. That would be like saying, oh, I actually can see. I can look around the studio. I'd be like, there's a coffee cup right there. Don't step there. Don't do that. That's not right. Don't go over here. There's a sweater over here. And here's how you walk across the world effectively. So this also has to do with creativity in the moment, the idea of unconditional love. Like if you are focused on the past, if you are anticipating the future, you are not in the present moment now. And that means that you are not in that rapport and that partnership with the sun and the stars and the light, let's call it light that is being emanated in that moment. That it, our perception, as I was speaking about observership in level 1. So we are observers, we are part of the creation aspect. It's not like someone else came along and built my house with hammers and nails and made this whole thing, and then I sit inside of my house. No. I actually made this house with my perception. Yes, constructors did workers did construct my house. But I construct my house every time that I perceive it. And that is also what I am doing with the emanations that come from the sun that I send back to the sun in real time. So that's the big takeaway. If you send back those emanations in real time, like a live stream, as opposed to doing a whole recording and then uploading it to the sun later after the fact, if you send it in real time, then you're in musical rapport with the great conductor in the moment now, having these experiences. And you can say, hey, I want the music to be faster or slower, or I'm uncomfortable, or I'm driving off a cliff. Please help me. Like that's the whole point. You're not supposed to drive off a cliff. You're not supposed to die. And you don't have to live in states of profound discomfort. What you're supposed to do is send that message back to the sun and the star. You're part of its art project, and say, hey, things are not good down here, either as an individual or as a collective. So unconditional love and being in the moment and being an observer is like a magical partnership with the sun. That's like a big emphasis here. Your ability to be loving and perceptive on that level and create reality is part of your partnership with the sun and with the photons that are emanated from the sun. Okay. Electromagnetic fields. This is the shape of a chakra or an energy center on the body. This is also the shape of Earth's magnetic field. In level 1, I was talking about the fad of quote unquote chakra removal. And I consider it to be a very ill-advised fad to participate in. One of the reasons why I consider that is because if we look at our planet has a protective magnetic envelope that surrounds and interpenetrates it. And in level 1, what I drew was this little diagram here. I'll draw this diagram again. Go. Electricity and magnetism. So if this is a line of an electron, that's the electricity part. The magnetism that is created is at 90-degree angles, and it spirals around, or surrounds the trajectory of the electron. So if the electron is moving in this direction, the magnetic field will always be at 90-degree angles to the motion of the electron. And this is electromagnetism. In Earth, draw the Earth. Here's the Earth. We'll just make like a big planetary blob. Inside of the planetary blob, there's a central core, and that the motions of the electrons in the central core. This is magnetism. So there's a whole bunch of magnetic molten metal in there that is making electrons swirl around. They're swirling around like whoosh, 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 whoosh. And as they swirl around, what they're creating is a magnetic field, and the magnetic field is called Earth's magnetosphere. And it is shaped exactly like that yellow sculpture. My drawing does not do it justice, but it's shaped roughly like that. It's exactly like my sculpture. And that's where we get the Aurora Borealis, where I'm making this big blue kind of halo. That's the northern lights. And then Aurora Australis, the southern lights. And that this happens in the physicality on Earth because of the interplay of the magnetic field of the Earth and the emanation, solar particles, I would say sprinklings, the nutritive sprinklings from the sun. The Aurora Borealis and Aurora Australis, the phenomenon of the aurora on our planet and on others, arises as an end result of the interplay of stellar emanations and Earth's magnetic field. And that's why I have my name, because I arise, consciousness, me, Aurora, arises as the end result of the interplay between my physical body and the consciousness from the stars. That is, the stellar emanations. And that's what makes me be here as flying rainbow lasagna. This magnetosphere here, this protective envelope of the planet, is absolutely essential for the health of the planet and for the health of the biological life on the planet. So if there's a planet with no magnetosphere, it's called being dead. It's like having a corpse with no chakras. There's something there. The objective materialist can say, look, I point to something. There's a physicality, but there's not the intangible energetic quality that actually makes the thing alive. And we do have dead planets in our solar system. The planet Mars is dead. Venus is dead. And the asteroid belt is clearly dead. It's a pile of rubble. It once was a planet. These 3 planets used to be like Earth. They had a healthy spinning ball of energy at its center that emanated this magnetic field. The magnetic field around Earth, the magnetosphere around any planet, it's essential for the capacity to build life. So let's make green dots. Here's you. Here's you. You're the little green dots down here on the planet. You're the little people being painted in the painting. The planet's the canvas, right? And then the sun is like, I'm going to paint a little person over here doing this little thing over here. Literally, you're an art project from the sun. And in order for that to happen, you can't have a whole bunch of like asteroids, meteors, meteorites, whatever is the word for it. You can't have a lot of space debris constantly falling on the surface of the planet and causing big giant explosions, because that's called extinction. You cannot have life if you have all of these bowling balls, boulders, giant mountaintops, everything constantly falling on your planet when you're just trying to paint a lovely little painting. So the magnetosphere is absolutely essential to keep space debris out of Earth so that biological life can form here. And it goes further than that. Let me get a different color. The sun has a heliosphere. So there's a protective magnetic envelope. I'm making it small, but understand that it is so big, it encompasses all the planets and all of their orbits happen within the sun's heliosphere. So the sun's heliosphere is so enormous, it's almost beyond human imagination, and it is exactly the same thing as the Earth's magnetosphere. It is a protective magnetic envelope that is shaped exactly like this. It's a torus. And P.S., any place where you have a torus, you can transform it into a flying rainbow lasagna. The sun's heliosphere here, wait, let me get, here's let's say this is Earth. This is like a little tiny green planet. It's not drawn to scale, but let's say Earth and the other planets exist within the heliosphere. The planets themselves could not form if the heliosphere did not exist. So this protective envelope on a stellar level, this protective magnetism, prevents big giant debris from coming in. If we didn't have that protective energy field, the planets themselves here would not have been able to be formed, and there would not be structure. It's very, very hard to create. Like, all this is a really delicate thing. It's like conceiving a child or writing a symphony or whatever. It's like you are doing something really delicate, and you can't do that with like bowling balls crashing in boulders falling on top of your head. Like, that doesn't happen. So all of this, in order to say, I do not advocate or recommend that you remove your own personal magnetosphere. That would leave you hugely vulnerable to all sorts of space debris falling on top of your own individual head. It would be death. It would be death. If we didn't have a heliosphere, the planets could not be formed. If we didn't have a magnetosphere of Earth, then we could not have little tiny me and you versions of ourselves being painted in this canvas. It would be too disrupted. So I absolutely recommend to everyone to refine your chakras or heal them or transform them into flying rainbow lasagna, but not to get rid of them. That is a very effective shielding for us. And that so you have your own, wait, go back to this. I'm jumping around a lot. I apologize. Go back to this picture so I can show you this. This picture right here. This is a picture of a anthropomorphic humanoid in the middle where I'm running my cursor. And then all of this around the anthropomorphic figure is the, your energy field, which is shaped like Earth's magnetosphere. And that all of this is connected via the singularity. So on this, get an annotation, here we go. On this drawing, all of the chakras are shown as having one common shared convergence point that I'm kind of trying to make my pen go to. There you go. That point right in the middle. That convergence point is the singularity. And that singularity is the same singularity, not a different singularity as the one that is Earth singularity. So the planet has a singularity at its center that is the same exact one that you have at your center. And then the sun and the heliosphere has one at its center. So let's draw these nested, like if you have, here's you with your little tiny singularity and your magnetosphere around you. And then let's draw Earth in green. This would be Earth's magnetosphere all around you and the planet. And then let's draw the heliosphere in red, drawn not to scale, but understood that this is big. It's very, very, very big. It goes all the way out. And that has its singularity at its center, and it's all the same singularity. It's all the same big white dot that I'm emphasizing right here. They all share the same singularity. So once again, not advising anyone to get rid of their toroidal chakra system because you are literally tied to the planet and the heliosphere and the galaxy. I didn't draw the galaxy one. Guess what, guys? There's a protective magnetic envelope that's so big that it's the size of the entire galaxy, and it would go off the page. It's so big and giant. It's this big, but it happens, and it has at the center of the galactic central sun, or the black hole, let's call it that. There's a supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. It is the gravitational glue that holds all of this together, and there's a supermassive black hole at the center of almost every galaxy that holds it all together. And those structures, the galactic structures, are also shaped like a torus. So you understand there's not something inherently flawed with the shape of a torus. There is not something inherently flawed with having a protective magnetic envelope. That is what it is to have chakras. You have a protective magnetic envelope that is shaped like a torus. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is that interlopers or hackers have come in and changed the structure of the consciousness and energy and made it much, much less comfortable to be in the toroidal structure. Don't hate the torus just because pathogens came in and infested it, all right? And the solution is flying rainbow lasagna or higher dimensional torus. This is what happens when you move the torus in a higher dimensional state, and you get to rearrange the Rubik's Cube, and you get to rearrange reality and kick the pathogens out. I'm connecting to my notes. Okay. The sun is affecting our DNA on a subcellular level. The sun is part of the composer and the conductor, and this is really big. So our DNA right now is degraded. It doesn't function in the same way that it was once supposed to. Oh, I got to get into DNA and supercoiling. Supercoiling. Da-da-da. So there's the supplemental homework videos, and I will share with you the images and everything like that. Got to go to my whiteboard here. Wait. Okay. Supercoiling. This is what happens with DNA. Oh, and you know what else? I want to show you a video too, but I don't have it on my computer, so I'm going to hold up my tablet so that you can see it kind of running on my tablet. I tried to transfer it over, but I could not. So, okay. This is what supercoiling is. And This is also what supercoiling is. And wait, before I get to that and that, let's start off with this. This is an image of what one strand of DNA looks like. It is taken from an electron scanning microscope, and this is also this where I'm running my cursor, lower left-hand corner of your screen. That's also an actual image of real DNA, not an artistic interpretation, taken with the scanning electron microscope. So this is all about coiling and the behavior of your DNA. So your DNA is not a flat, static object. It is moving. It's like a vibrating string that is inside of the instrument of your body, and it has behavior. And the movements of it are dance movements. So it does. So the DNA does all sorts of interesting things. So the pink image over here is an image of DNA that was taken from a scanning electron microscope and then colorized. This I have permission to use by the, go back to my face, by the animator of this scientific animation. I just don't know how to get it onto my computer so you can see it. So please look at it in this very low-tech way. So you can see this is the one strand of DNA, the way that it zips together and the way that it twists together. Just to give you an idea on a basic level, that it's quivering, it's moving, it's twisting, it's zipping, it's unzipping, it's twining together the way that, if you're spinning wool or, whatever, flax or something like that, it's twine it together. And that is just to make one strand of DNA, like one piece of thread. And then if you take that thread or that yarn and you keep on twisting it and twisting it and twisting it and adding energy to it. Oh, no, that's not what I want. Sorry. I keep on pressing the wrong buttons. I'm doing it, guys. I'm doing it. If you keep on adding energy to it, what you get is supercoiling. So this is the first part of supercoiling. Is just a simple loop. And then if you keep on coiling and coiling and coiling, the DNA makes even more interesting and complex structures. So these two are not my drawings. I just need to make that clear. Get it, annotation. This one over here shows you from one single strand, like a piece of yarn, coiling around these little, they almost are like a spool, like thread winds around a spool. The DNA begins to wind around a spool. The spool is these protein shapes called histones, and then starts to make these little rosette patterns. So you can see these rosette patterns over here, and that's also evident in this diagram over here. And then as more energy is added, those rosettes twist up together, and eventually what you end up with is this down here, an X-shaped chromosome. That's after like a lot of energy being added. It's like knitting the genetic sweater or crocheting the genetic sweater. So this, let me just drink a little bit of water here. There's good questions. I'll get to your questions too. Oh no, I don't want it for, the genetic sweater. So science in this time and place describes DNA as having certain aspects of DNA that describe the physical blueprint of your body. Like what color are your eyes and what is the shape of your earlobe? Attached or free earlobes. I have non-attached earlobes, and that's part of the DNA of your body. Other aspects of your, your DNA also describes your flight through time. So science and objective materialism says your DNA just describes your visible protein structures. I tell you that DNA, our integument that ties us together from moment to moment as we jump through time, and that the portions of your DNA that science would describe as junk DNA are the aspects that have not been topically unlocked in order to show you their information. And when I say, I should say it's topically, topologically, that's what I'm trying to say, surface. So topology is the study of surfaces, just like I was showing you the Mobius strip. Like this is part of topology, understanding surfaces and membranes and the structures of them. So there is a topology to time, and sometimes I have to rewind and edit what I'm thinking, what I'm saying here. Hold on a minute. And topology enters into this discussion because the events of your life are mapped onto the skin of the torus. And when I say that, what I mean is that, I draw this time vortex all the time, and that you are many of you are participants who have been here for a long time. You know what I'm talking about. The time vortex, the skin here. This is a very quick sketch of the time vortex that goes like this and like this and like this. And that this area right here that I'm highlighting in green is the membrane of death. And that it contains the last moments. These little green dots are the last moments of your life. And that those last moments are what is on the surface of the torus. Like you could imagine them as little frozen moments, like, I'm frozen, or like, snapshot, or like at the end of the movie, the guy kisses the girl and they hug, and then that moment, freeze frame, and it's the end, roll credits. Freeze frame, roll credits. Those moments are all along this membrane. They're all along this outer membrane here. They could be depicted as like, a series of numbers or symbols or whatever, but just understand that they are a series of events. So you have your sweater, your DNA is like made out of yarn. You could say it is the sweater of you, and you are knitting together or crocheting together these, bits of genetic material. And science looks at your genetic sweater like a Christmas sweater, whatever. It's a Snoopy Christmas sweater. So you got a red background, then you got a picture of Snoopy with his doghouse and a Christmas tree, right? And science does not even investigate DNA as a holistic endeavor. The way that science understands DNA is it takes the Snoopy Christmas sweater and it unfurls all of it. We're going to pull out all the loops, chop up all the yarn into bits, put the whole thing in a blender, and then we're going to chemically separate out. And we're going to say, how much red do we have? How much green do we have? How much white? How much black? And it's a very rough approximation of what the sweater looked like when it was knitted together. So science presently, just rearranging my chair here, does not investigate DNA in the living being. That little animation that I showed you is a artistic interpretation. They didn't actually put a camera in a living cell and be able to see, oh, this is how it's moving, this is what it's doing. Science is not that advanced yet to be able to do that. So, because that would be like actually seeing the live person, actually seeing the live dance, actually studying the organism while it is alive. So science kills the organism, dissects it into pieces, and then says, oh, this is what this is. It doesn't recognize that the organism is way more than that. So your genetic sweater is way more than just what science says it is. Yes, it is the format of being knitted together into a Snoopy Christmas sweater, but it can be way more, because just like I was saying in the level 1 presentation, if we have, let's say this is the flat plane of time, but we can fold the flat plane of time into an origami and change and restructure time. We can do the same exact thing with the last moments of your life and the ordinarily toroidal structure of your body by adding an additional degree of freedom called the flying rainbow lasagna, which basically means you take the last moments of your life, of your many lives, your last moments, plural, of this life, singular. You take the many last moments of your life and you can combine them together in a sense of virtuosity. So from level 1 here today, here's the membrane separating things out. Here's my scooper. My scooper is taking a scoop from here and a scoop from here and a scoop from here and a scoop from here because I'm flying rainbow lasagna across these membranes. Let's say this is the membrane that separates different last moments, freeze frame, roll credits. Well, we got over here on this side, we've got one version of reality where you, found the person of your dreams and hugged and kissed and walked on a beach. Freeze frame, roll credits. And on this version of reality, to come up with a different scenario, whatever. You got a boat and you sailed it all the way to, across, circumnavigated the world because you got a boat and you learned how to be a sailor. And these are two very different realities. And through flying rainbow lasagna. And that's like the freeze frame of your life. The last moment of your life was, sailed off into the sunset on a boat, circumnavigating. Last moment of your life over here is, kissing and hugging on a beach with your ideal person. And what if we can take a scoop from here and then go across here and a scoop from here? We are combining realities. And this is part of re-knitting the genetic sweater. So this goes beyond just the idea that you can restructure your face. I don't like my face. I want to look different. No, it's not just about restructuring your face. So here's also this, what are the aesthetics that are used in terms of restructuring reality? It's not just about stupid stuff from society. If society says, I like blonde hair better than brown or red hair for arbitrary reasons, it does not mean that you should flying rainbow lasagna and scoop from the realities where you have blonde hair. Like, that's a stupid reason to do it. Your reasoning for scooping should be based in a set of values that is way more universal, like universal not only for this context. Like, choose the scoops that are for health. Choose the scoops that are for being connected to the divine. Choose the scoops of your possible existence that help you to continue in existence, with continuity of consciousness as opposed to death. So health, life, vitality, connection to the divine, continuation of your journey, as opposed to the parts that end on the membrane of death, with you squashed in a horrible whatever. Let me get to questions. Okay. So before I forget, yes, I have supplemental homework videos about supercoiling. Yes, I need to show you that at a certain point in supercoiling, the DNA makes a toroidal structure. I'll draw it for you. Draw. The DNA makes a toroidal structure. Clear it all out. At a certain point in its supercoiling. So here's DNA. I told you, wraps around histones. Boom, boom, I'm wrapping around a histone. And I actually start wrapping around a histone in such a way that I look just like a solenoid, electromagnetism, toroidal energy field. And in the DNA, when it's, so there's two different ways. And this is just precursor. I actually have this more extensive, I talk about this more extensively in some of the other lessons. So this is just the beginning of understanding this. Any place where you have a torus or a donut shape, you can transform it into a flying rainbow lasagna. So at this level of supercoiling, you have a relatively, a toroidal shape. And what you can do is transform it into a flying rainbow lasagna that would end up looking, something like this, right? One points up like that, one points up like that, and then you have the curly lasagna noodle in the middle. So, and at a certain point in your DNA, you have many donuts stacked up next to each other. So one thread like this gets coiled together, and then you have kind of a donut shape. Here's a donut, and here's like a hole, and here's another hole. Well, let's say we have many of these donuts kind of lined up next to each other. And what we're doing is causing them to vibrate in the next highest dimension, like a flying rainbow lasagna. What you end up doing is having overlapping, because I have this lasagna over here. And then I have this one over here. Ooh, look, I'm overlapping. Ooh, look, I'm overlapping. I did this one over here. I'm overlapping this one over here and this one over here. So what I'm doing is, this is a perfect example. It's called genetic mashup, like the DJs, or the hip hop artists. So they make a pastiche like a quilt, a type of song that's out of a quilt. We're going to take a little bit of this sample over here, and then we're going to add these musical notes to it over here, and then we're going to throw in a little bit of Jimi Hendrix, and then we will throw in a little bit of Mozart, and then I'm going to press my magical DJ buttons, and then it becomes a song. This is, pastiche culture. And this is what your DNA can do in the same way. The flying rainbow lasagna can be like, let's take a scoop or an element from this genetic structure over here, and then let's combine it with a few beats from this song over here. Then let's combine it with a few beats from this song over here, then let's put the whole thing together. This is re-knitting the genetic sweater. You're taking all the stuff that science calls junk, which is basically means undecipherable, and turning it into something that is actually useful. And I use this movie Contact with, like it's kind of an old movie based on the book by Carl Sagan as an example of what I'm talking about here. In that movie, it was a fiction movie, but it's about extraterrestrial contact. There are scientists who receive a radio broadcast from outside of the world, and they are able to put it together, and it looks like it's a blueprint. Right? They think it's a blueprint for some kind of a machine. They're like, "Ooh, super intelligent aliens are telling us to build a machine. This is so cool." But they can't figure out the blueprint because they have everything printed on flat pieces of paper that are laid out on a big table. And it takes a smart person in the movie to say, "Wait a minute, this blueprint is not meant to be laid out on a flat table. It is meant to be put around the edges of an object like a cube." And as soon as they did that, then they were able to read the blueprint and build the machine. And this is and also the machine ended up being something that was different than their expectation. It was not a clank metal spaceship to fly from point A to point B. It was a clank consciousness facilitator that allowed consciousness to travel from point A to point B. So it was kind of like an artificial flying rainbow lasagna. But I bring that up in order to say that your DNA is like the blueprint, that science is looking at that potential right now as we've got all these pieces of paper spread out on a flat table. And there are the scientists are like, we don't understand. We only understand 10% of this blueprint. I can understand the part that's about your earlobe, but I don't get the rest of this. And that's because they have not understood it as being around a three-dimensional object. They have not understood like the mapping the skin of the torus, which is actually a three-dimensional. This is not flat. It's not a flat piece of paper. It's shaped like a donut. It's got form and volume to it. That is what is necessary in terms of understanding DNA. Then if your DNA is analogous to a flat piece of paper that's connected to time, that then if you fold the piece of paper, it's like making origami, all of a sudden you have a completely different shape. And the surfaces that are on the outside of the shape have a different formulation than they would have otherwise. So instead of having a Snoopy image on your Christmas sweater, you could have a completely different image. You could have whatever, a Metallica sweater. You could have whatever, My Little Pony sweater. I'm thinking of the most outrageous alternatives to Snoopy. This is what's going on with your DNA, that you can literally restructure your DNA so that it takes all of the stuff that is potential, what science would call junk, and origami, fold it into the next highest dimension, take a scoop from here and a scoop from here, and rewrite your DNA, rewrite new possibilities, make new possibilities possible that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. And this is all a journey of consciousness. It does not actually involve a clank metal machine in any way. No CRISPR. You don't have to use a DNA CRISPR. These are like these machines that kind of like, they snip, they rewind, they snip. No, you're doing that all the time inside of yourself. I want you to know. If science could actually take a little tiny camera and look at your cell, be like, what's actually going on in there? You would see acrobatics. It's the most amazing arabesque. So inside of your DNA, inside of your cell membrane, nuclear membrane, inside of the nucleus, which is like the library of your cell, the DNA is not supercoiled all the time. It's only supercoiled for the moment of mitosis. And when it is uncoiled, it's called chromatin. It's just a big bunch of vibrating strings. And the vibrating strings are always twisting, untwisting. They splice themselves, they unsplice themselves, they knit themselves back together, they form loop-de-loops, they cross do-si-do, they do stuff. So that's an essential understanding in order to understand that you can do the flying rainbow lasagna just like you're already doing a genetic dance. It's not like you're like totally static, not moving at all. And now I'm saying to everybody, okay, get your feet moving, get your arms moving, be a lasagna. No, you're already moving. You're already moving in the prescribed genetic patterns that have been given to us by our ancestors and also by the beings that incepted these bodies, the beings that created these bodies in this format. They weren't your friends. They were taking you away from your higher faculties. So they certainly have diminished our capacities. And I'm always telling you and reaffirming, like, this is all about returning or even superseding those higher capacities. What we were in Atlantis, that and more, all that and more will be for you. Let me just make sure I got all of my notes. Okay, so this is the last thing. That genetic degradation, it didn't just cause degradation of our body so that like you die after 100 years if you're lucky. It also caused a cutting off from ourself and the stars and the sun. And I sometimes use the example of like a phone. If you're like I'm trying to call someone, but like I'm in a dead zone. They can't hear me. I'm trying to call them. I've been trying to call the sun for like 5,000 years, 6,000, 10,000, 20,000 years. I can't get through. I'm like in some kind of a dead zone. And you're in a genetic dead zone. The reason why you can't get through is because literally the DNA structure, the guitar knobs have been turned and you're not in tune anymore. And that is why the sun is sending out these emanations like echolocation and saying, I'm waiting to hear back from you. What's going on down there? And it's not hearing back. And it's not your fault. It's because you got invaded on this planet, invaded in your body, and genetically degraded so that the sun can't hear you. And then you turn in your hard drive. Where's my hard drive? Here. At the end of your life, you die, you hit the membrane of death. You're like, here you go, son. Here's what I was up to. And the sun is like, oh my God, like, if only I had known. Sorry for the barking. And I'm sure that Chica will need a break and a walk soon. But yes, I wish I could have known. I would have blah, blah, and changed things. So that whole idea from level 1 of today, the little ant jumping up and over. Cheeky, please don't be loud. We got 5 more minutes. Jumping up and over. if there's a blockade here, if some genetic invaders came in, they said, hey, oh, you want to talk to the sun? You want to actually talk to your heritage, your real ancestors? I'm not going to let you. I'm going to blockade you. I'm going to stand here the whole time saying, blah, 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 blah. You can't talk to the sun. Well, what you can do is jump up and over. And then you can actually talk to the sun. Here, come on over here, Tiki. Don't be upset. She's barking at the neighbor's dog, and for some reason she's upset. You can jump up and over those inborn limitations that were put into the genetic code that make it so that you can't effectively talk to the sun, which is the literal artist that created you as an art project that cares about you. It totally freaking cares about you. The sun cares about your body health and where you're going on your trajectory, whether you hit the membrane of death, whether you have babies successfully, whether you transcend this level of reality. The sun really cares about you. So yes, this is the way, stop it. This is the way to jump up and over those limitations so that you can return to having a conversation with the sun and the stars. Hey, please stop. You want to come up here? Come up here. And yeah, good girl. That's right. Much better. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So I made it through all of my my intended notes, and now let me get to good. Let me get to, oh, there's wonderful questions here. Thank you so much. Good girl, Cheek. Good girl. So this is from Jen. First question is, what is your take on the pole shift and how they say it's speeding up, and also Saturn losing its rings, and also geoengineering reflecting these photons back into the sun? Thank you for your wonderful questions. That's from Jen. So first of all, pole shift. I've spoken about this also. I've got this painting over here on the wall, and if you can see it, but that painting is called Birth of a New Dimension, and it is all about the Earth's ordinarily toroidal magnetosphere transforming into a higher dimensional flying rainbow lasagna shape. And so, okay, at the end of Atlantis, we had Lemuria, everything was cool. We had Atlantis, everything was not cool in Atlantis. Our planet got invaded. Our human genome was, horribly degraded. And, then what happened? Well, the human genome is actually connected to the stability of Earth's axis, that you're spinning. You're not just the planet spinning, not just the core of the planet spinning, creating this magnetosphere, but your DNA is spinning. That's dancing all the time. If I didn't have my dog here, I would do the dance. But you're dancing all the time. You're spinning on a genetic level. And that is supposed to be like bicycle wheels, a gyro-stabilizing effect that gyro-stabilizes the entire planet. And when our DNA was degraded to a profound level in ancient Atlantis, it destabilized Earth and her whole entire trajectory through, space. Like it wibble wobble to the point of having an axis and having a crustal displacement and all sorts of catastrophe in the physical body. And so what we're in right now is the parentheses. We're in like the complementary end of the thing that started in Atlantis. But we don't have to re-experience the same traumas that we experienced then. So I keep on trying to tell everybody good things. It is not going to be a pole shift this time, north-south to south-north, right? If this is a magnet, North Pole, South Pole, and it's a dipole magnet, North Pole, South Pole, South Pole, North Pole. That is what happened with Atlantis, the artificial Merkaba that screwed things up on a very profound level. This shift will be not north-south to south-north. It will be inner to outer. It will be flying rainbow lasagna. So the pole is shifting from the internal to the external and the external to the internal. So the magnetic North Pole of our planet is migrating, and it has migrated on out over towards Siberia. And so this is like a symptom that this transformation is about to take place. The transformation does not have to be catastrophic. It can be inner to outer, where all of a sudden your dreams come true. Are your dreams nightmares? If your dreams are nightmares, then what you manifest upon that moment will be horrible. But if your dreams are beautiful, then we could manifest what we consider utopia, even better than what was here in Atlantis, because that was clearly had like weak points or flaws or ways that it could be degraded. That this will be the transcendence of that capacity to be degraded. So I'm just looking at all of your questions. Yes, and it's time now. I've been doing this class for like 6 years, and I've been here on Earth for about 18 years. It's time. I've been saying like we're experiencing labor pains for a very long time. This is a very long delivery. I say like, honey, we have delivered. We are the baby. We have given birth to this new experience of reality. And it just might not be totally evident to you yet in your personal life, but it's very evident to me that my inner creates the outer, and then the outer reflects back to the inner. I'm definitely feeling that a lot. And like I was saying in level 1, if you have inner turmoil, you will externalize your inner turmoil and then have it reflected back into you. So in order to do this flying rainbow lasagna, like in a healthy, good way, this pole shift from inner to outer, we got to do a big old healing. And I was hoping that it would happen over the past 2 years, because that's all of the stuff about what is called euphemistically human trafficking, but let's just say the buying and selling of humans, human body parts, human sexuality, human life force energy by non-terrestrial entities. That's their economy. And this economy is now becoming more and more evident to everyone on this planet, but we haven't done the healing. The healing would mean that it's like if in your family, if you're like, okay, in your family, if you're like, okay, so-and-so is not okay because so-and-so is always sexually abusing them. Like now it's evident, everyone can tell, oh, that family member has a drug habit and they're like whatever, living on the streets and everything, because they were horribly raped and abused by whatever, grandpa or uncle or whatever, whoever it was. And we still haven't talked to grandpa or uncle. We still haven't said to them, hey, you did this thing. We need to go to the police. We didn't do any of that stuff. So this is why we still have dark stuff internally that we're externalizing. We haven't found the healing yet. The healing is when everyone says, hey, you just think satanic ritual abuse is something that actually is going on. It actually has happened. We need to do something about this. We need to end these practices. We need to prosecute the individuals who have done it. We need to make sure this never happens again, because you let it out into the sunlight and then you're not going to have the same problem again. So we need to have the healing and rectification of whatever form that takes. If it is some kind of like official, court trials or tribunals, or if it is something that is different than that, it might not be as formal as that. We as a planet and as collective and as individuals need to go through that healing so that we can then go into the world of pure imagination and not emit a lot of rape and abuse, because that's not a very fun thing to imagine. So we got to heal from all the stuff that's inside of us so we can imagine something greater. Okay, next question is about Saturn losing its rings. So the changes in our planet, in terms of inside to outside pole shift, are exemplary of the changes in the sun. And the sun affects all of the planets in our solar system and is connected to the entire stellar network. So this flying rainbow lasagna transformation is not just on our planet, it's on our entire solar system, and not just on our little solar system, but it affects the entire stellar network. So there are massive changes on all of these different planets. There have been changes in terms of Jupiter and the storms that have been stable there since the invention of telescopes on the surface of Earth. Now it's like, wow, the red spot is changing now. Also, same thing with storms that are on Saturn, the hexagonal shaped storm at one of the poles that, like a cloud structure that is considered to be a consciousness prison, changes colors sometimes. Planets are heating up, planets are developing aurorae the phenomenon when they didn't used to have them. All sorts of wacky hijinks are going on in the solar system. It's not just our solar system, it's the entire stellar network. So let's just file that away under symptoms of change, but not necessarily catastrophe, but just understand. And this is why you also should understand that, yes, our climate on Earth has changed. It is changing. Some of it is influenced by humans and exotic technology like weather engineering. Some of it is not about technological weather manipulation. Some of it is a direct result of increased energy, like solar wind, solar particles, increased stellar energy coming to our planet. Because I'm telling you, they do not have coal-fired power plants on like Jupiter or Uranus. And I know you say Uranus. They say it's Uranus. They don't have power plants over there. And yet those planets have increased in their average temperature. So you have to say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on? If it's not happening because of power plants, but please do not use this to say Aurora is justifying the continued use of petroleum and coal. And like, no, I don't want that. I don't want nuclear. But I'll get into it. So yes, and also at that end of that movie, Contact, what they found out was that they thought they were building the clank metal spaceship, but it was actually a consciousness vehicle. And what I want everyone to understand is that there are all of these experiments that are being done called free energy or over unity devices exploring the torus shape as a way to get free or less expensive energy. And I'm saying scientists, talk to me. If you guys are really interested in this shape and you think that the best aspect of it, like if we really come to understand this, then we can make like electricity for 3 cents cheaper. I'm like, no, think bigger. Because if you transform this shape into this shape, you can do something way more fun than just have cheaper electricity. You can, essentially grow wings and experience time in a nonlinear fashion and totally transform time. And of course, we should all have healing and, you know, be transforming from a good place and making a utopia as opposed to a nightmarish reality. Yes, I would love for scientists to abandon the quest for cheaper electricity and embrace the quest for freedom of consciousness. So the geoengineering, this is a huge problem because those photons are supposed to come to our planet. And there is a very misguided sense. So let's talk about the geoengineering program. And I know my thing is running late here. A large portion of geoengineering is exotic technology, exotech, that is being deployed on our planet right now. It is not manufactured by humans. It is not deployed by humans. It is not deployed by human aircraft, even though the craft that you see in the sky might have holographic projections around them to make them appear as if they are ordinary fixed-wing, you know, earthly, human piloted aircraft. And this is why in my conversations with people all the way back to 2014, when I would say, hey, those are exotic craft in the sky. Those are chemtrails that are being sprayed. The nanotechnology itself, the particles itself, is not earthly. And then people would say, the pilots, they're spraying themselves. They're spraying their own families. Newsflash, they do not have pilots. These are non-piloted drones. This is exotic technology that is being deployed in our atmosphere, which is a total against any kind of agreement or treaty or whatever that has ever been agreed with malevolent technology using extraterrestrials, which is what you should understand. You cannot make a deal with, pardon my French, evil assholes. I'm sorry that there might be children watching. You cannot make a deal. It's an unenforceable negotiation. They don't stand by their word. They'll be like, yeah, sure, we're not going to do that. And then they will turn around right and do that. So don't do it. Then there are also human, earthly created, it's called geoengineering or weather manipulation technology, things like HARP, things like using actual human aircraft to do cloud seeding or weather management, or there's other things too. Like there was the geothermal plant on the largest island of Hawaii that was functional for many decades, and it had these horizontal fans that would blow plumes up into the atmosphere that were plumes of super saturated with moisture, very warm air. And those plumes could then be manipulated through other things to be able to create storms where the weather manipulators wanted them to be. The point is that is not exotech. That is earthly tech that is being used in conjunction with exotic technology. So the Earth's weather, this is like your blood supply. This is like a symptom of your health. Like it's totally out of whack, and it's been the technology has been used in order to make it in that way. And the sun is experiencing even more of a dead zone than usual because the sun is sending out photons. The photons are supposed to get to our planet. They're supposed to go into our eyes or be caught on a leaf or go on a red thing, and then it bounces into your eye, and you see that it's a color. That's what's supposed to happen. And instead, if there's a shield, they're putting particles in the atmosphere, the sunlight is bouncing away, that consciousness does not reach our planet. And it's not just the physical photons that have been blocked out, it is also the consciousness rays. Don't panic, because you can flying rainbow lasagna with the sun, get all the food that you need anyway. Clearly, I am well nourished. I'm getting all of the solar food that I need, even though I live in a world where the atmosphere is sprayed with these horrible little contaminants. So rest easy, rest assured, you can still connect with the sun. They're just trying to make your job way harder. And it is misguided that they say, oh, we are protecting humanity from some kind of incoming solar radiation that's going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt you. It is going to lasagnify you. Literally, that this is incredibly loving and benevolent energy that is supposed to come to us, supposed to come into our minds and our energy system and our bodies and transform us on a genetic level. And the beings that have been blocking out, they're like, no, I don't want you to transform on a genetic level. I want you to stay like some kind of undeveloped slug that's very easy to control and manipulate. So yes, embrace the sun and its emanations. Thank you for your great question. Then some say the sun is a physical portal for clank ships. What do you say? Thanks. So yes, the sun is a physical portal also, or let's say is being utilized by technology using space races. And some of them, they do things like they will siphon energy off of the sun. It could be energy, particles, gases, plasmas. Like, yeah, they do that. They go to the sun and they're like, oh, we got to fuel up, scoop. But that's not the same as saying, oh, I'm hungry. I got to get energy from the sun. I'm going to telepathically connect with the sun. These are two qualitatively different experiences. Yes, they will try to utilize the phenomena of the sun in terms of its consciousness and the electromagnetism and the portal structure, the heliosphere and the singularity at the center of the sun. They will try to utilize that with clank clank metal technology, but that's not how experts do star travel. But it's a very good question. Pedro asks a wonderful question. Is the universe shaped like a torus? The answer is yes. And in this definition of the word universe, what I'm using it to describe is one timeline. So there's the multiverse, the cosmos, every single timeline that ever has existed. And then there's this particular timeline. And yes, this particular timeline or this universe is shaped like a toroid. And so the Earth, your body, the sun, the galaxy, the universe is all shaped like a torus. And then the larger time structure of many, many universes is also shaped like a torus. Joelle says, I'm squinting here. I did read about an experiment, though, Aurora, where they took someone's DNA in a petri dish and they had the person it belonged to in the next room watching different images, and they noticed the DNA expanded and contracted according to the emotional mental state when watching the movies. And that is exactly right. That is called epigenetics, EPI, epigenetics. So when genes are supercoiled, they can be very tightly coiled, imagining that this is my hand is like a spring with the coils tightly coiled, or they can be loose and relaxed. And if they're loose and relaxed, then the little RNA messengers, the librarians, can get in there and read the pages of the book. And it all depends on what this chapter says. If this chapter says, here's how you dismantle a horrible, nasty tumor, then you're like, oh, I want my little librarians to be able to read that chapter. That's important information. Keep that open, loosely coiled. But what if you have your how to remove a tumor pages are all glued together and you got a tumor? Then your messengers, your librarians, they go in, they're like, well, I'm looking for the information as to how to dismantle a tumor. I can't find it. I can't read those pages. So let's use the opposite example. Let's say what's written in this chapter is how to get cancer. And you're like, okay, if we leave these pages open, the librarians can read them, share that information with the rest of the body, and you can learn how to get cancer. But if you don't want to get cancer, even though it might be written in your genetic code from your mommy or your daddy, your grandpa, your great-grandpa, you can have those pages of the book stuck together. And this is called epigenetics. And the loosely coiled or pages stuck together is entirely dependent upon you as the individual, your thoughts, your belief structure, your feelings, and what Joelle is saying in this experiment. Yeah, if I show you a bunch of nightmarish movies, your positive chapters, they all close. It's like, here's how to be happy and healthy and everything like that. Oh yeah, your DNA actually closes up like that because you're watching all this stuff that makes you feel like, So yes, our what we are exposed to in life, our stress, our beliefs, the events of our life, the other people that we talk to, all of that is part of this epigenetics. The process is called methylation, depends upon how tightly coiled your DNA is. So even having this conversation here with me, first of all, thank you, class. Thank you to everyone who tunes in, everybody who watches the archive. Thank you for exposing yourself to these ideas. I give them to you like a food. Like if you want it, that's awesome. If you don't want it, you don't have to eat it. Like that's the only ethical way to do this. I'm like, hey, thank you for listening to these ideas. These ideas literally are changing the structure of your DNA. Are you tightly coiled? Are you no longer tightly coiled? And the chapters that are being opened up by these conversations might be chapters that are about, hey, here is the genetic chapter as to how to live forever. Like, how do you keep on, I want to say revivifying, like regenerating. How do you keep on regenerating? Here's the chapter on regeneration. And if I tell you, hey guys, guess what? You can regenerate. You don't have to die after 100 years. And you're like, wait a minute. I just had this new idea that maybe I don't have to die. Maybe I can regenerate. And all of a sudden you get access to that information. So just like when you were a little tiny child and someone told you death is real, you're going to die one day. All of your genes changed into the format of, I am going to die one day. So this is becoming a genetic virtuoso where you can consciously say, these are the songs I want to play. I want to play this music. That is good music. Oh, my body feels great. I don't want to play the smashing of the keyboard. I don't want to disturb my little dog. She's sleeping so beautifully over here. Look at her. She's like, I'm just sleeping peacefully while you finish up the class. Then we'll have fun and go for a WALK. Thank you so much. That was a really great comment, Joelle. Hello, Billy. This is a new participant, so thank you and welcome. Billy says, is the singularity in the middle of DNA braided into a torus? Thank you. I don't know how to describe braided into a torus. There is a singularity at the center of your DNA. How can I describe the singularity in your DNA? There are multiple singularities in your DNA. I'll show you with the picture. So if we're looking at each of these as like, supercoiled aspects of DNA, there's only one singularity, but it is evident in many different positions. So let's say red is the singularity color in here. There can be many, I'll make a big giant exaggerated dot. There can be a singularity there, singularity there, singularity there. They're like doorways or portals. They're portals to infinity. They relate to the toroid or torus shape, but I don't know how to describe if they're braided in. But thank you very much for your question. Jen says, that's what I was hoping. Do you think if people do FRL, it will change the planet? Is it like a mass consciousness event? It is absolutely a mass consciousness event. So I'm gratified to see, I've seen some videos of people that are talking about what is happening on Earth as an electromagnetic consciousness event. That is what, I'm not a total endorsement of this entire person's work, but that's what they're calling it. EMCO, electromagnetic consciousness event. That is what this transformation on a planetary level into Flying Rainbow Lasagna is all about. And we are little cells on the body. If my body transforms into FRL, then all of my little cells have to be like, oh, time to do this dance, right? If the planet is transforming into Flying Rainbow Lasagna, all of the little cells have to be like, oh, it's time to do this little dance. So yeah, guys, it's time to do the little dance. It's time to do it. Salu says, Aurora, the red aspect of the FRL in your sculpture is particularly wavy. In some way, does it symbolize the malleability of the DNA structure? Lovely question. And she says, so is it also an artistic representation of why, how, although quote unquote white light masters, rainbow men and women, are more easily able to manipulate their DNA structure, albeit within universal harmony, of course? I love your question. Thank you. Let me read through this again. The red aspect is more curly than the other aspects. So what I have to show you now is, this is a simplification. When it's a 3D printed object, so I wasn't able in this sculpture to put in all of the details. But in that picture over there, that sculpture over there, which I'll show you an image of, I was able to put in all the details. Wait, let me looking for a picture to show you. Pictures worth 1,000 words. Okay, wait. I know it's in class lectures. Let me find it for you. Here. Okay, and now I gotta go to, hold on a second, guys. I promise I will get it. Show you this picture. Okay, there we go. So this is a photograph of that sculpture that you see there. And this photograph is much more accurate because I made it by, this sculpture is more accurate. I made it by hand and I was able to add in all of the different layers. So this red layer, yes, is very curly and that's very exaggerated and you can see it. And the same level of curliness also exists in orange. Here's the orange curliness. Here's the orange curliness. But they don't connect together. So the orange goes like this, and the orange goes like this, and the orange goes like this. But there is empty space in between it. So red is the only place where they all connect together. So the answer to your question is that there's the same level of curliness on the other layers of the lasagna, like up here is also curly, but I do not necessarily have that shown in this sculpture, which is a simplification. And it's definitely my desire to, update or refine this design. I need like a computer expert to be able to do that so that when it prints out with an orange one, there should be a yellow swoop, there should be each individual layer. So this is a simplification. Your question about the malleability of reality, though. All of these layers of reality are malleable, from the one that is closest to the abstract or purely divine to the one that is this material level down here. In fact, if you make a little bit of a change at the level of violet, like let's say 1 unit of energy applied at violet, when it translates outward to red, can become 10 million units of energy. This is the unequal relationship, proportional relationship between matter and energy. So it takes a lot of energy to make a little tiny bit of matter. A lot of light has to be slowed down and condensed to make a little tiny bit of matter. So if you want to make a big bomb, a big explosion, all you need is 1 little atom or 2 little atoms. 2 little atoms come together, little bit of matter, a whole lot of energy coming out of that. So this is how you can understand a little tiny bit, or let's use like being an archer, like archery. If I'm going to shoot an arrow, if I make a little tiny change, a correction of like, 1 centimeter here where I'm shooting the arrow, by the time it reaches the target, that could be many feet. It gets magnified and amplified. So changes that are made on the internal energetic level of pure consciousness, a little tiny change, a millimeter, gets magnified on its journey outward into the outer manifestation and can be a mile, a millimeter to whatever, kilometers. There's a huge magnification out into there. And I love your question about, is it the rainbow people of the white light that are more easily able to manipulate their DNA structure? I find the rainbow to be a very positive symbol. And so I cover myself in rainbows, and I find it not to be a symbol of like evil, control, or anything like that. However, I've had to learn that it's been subverted, that some people look at me and my rainbows and be like, Aurora, you are Saturn, the 7 layers of Saturn, and also the Over the Rainbow, that movie with the Wizard of Oz that has been used as an MK Ultra, a trigger for MK Ultra slaves. So I've had to learn to tell people like, no, my rainbow is not a rainbow that's all about like controlling your mind or anything like that. So I consider it to be a very positive thing. And I would consider, yes, like people who are rainbow colored are rainbow full spectrum humans, because we are connecting effectively to the sun and the stars and that light, and that is literally rearranging reality. So I like you said universal harmony, like the good musician. So that is how I interpret the rainbow and how I wear it. Small Sky says, I have heard mostly from quote unquote Pleiadian videos, but other sources as well, that spinning left to right 33 times affects our bodies. Is that true? And if so, how? I do not know about physically spinning from left to right. I do know about spinning in terms of the Merkaba, which is a non-physical spinning or counter-rotating field. So I would say that definitely affects our body, but I didn't know like about maybe being a whirling dervish, like these, spinning. It definitely affects your vestibular, your sense of where you are in reality. It can bring you to exalted mental states, definitely. But I don't usually do it or advocate other people to do it. But thank you. It's a good question. Joel says, is this what all the cosmic radiation is that science is so worried about hurting us? Is it actually upgrading us? It is absolutely upgrading you. But here are some things that you need to know. Just like you should not emerge from your wintertime cocoon, where like I used to live on the East Coast with the snow. So we used to be like, you're wrapped up in scarves all the time. You got your hat down, you got your head down. Like the only part that ever gets to be outside is your little face, right? So at the end of the winter, like you're super pale. You're not ready to go out and get fully fried in the sun. What you got to do is you got to, get a little bit of sun, build a little bit of a base tan, and then you can go to the beach and, really expose yourself to the sun. If you do too much at once, you get a sunburn. So this is the same exact type of thing with exposing ourselves to the transformative energies that are being emanated from the sun and the stars right now. It's very bad that these things have been blocked out because it's like wintertime. It's like everybody's super pale and you don't have any natural protection from the consciousness. So what you need to do, what I would recommend everyone to do, is to expose themselves to small incremental amounts and not to, this is of your mind, of your consciousness. Don't fry your circuits because you are getting too much at once. Manageable increments, small sensible bites, and I do the same thing with sun gazing. I don't advocate for physical staring at the sun with your physical eyes, but with, eating it with your mind. But even still, it is like an exercise that you need to work up to. Do a little bit, you do a moment, you do a couple of moments, then you do longer sessions and you do more. So all of this is about getting up to but yes, your idea that science is so weird. Oh no, cosmic rays. Oh no, a Carrington event. Oh no, you're going to get cosmic rays, you're going to get cancer. No, put that all aside. You're not going to get cancer because you get exposed to cosmic rays. Like these are the literal antithesis of cancer. These are rays that are helping you to become a superhuman. Literally, we're becoming superhumans by the definition of what that is. Brandon Smart says, symbiote, I think your mic is open. Oh, thank you. Let me mute everyone. That's really good. Mute everyone. I'm sorry, I didn't see that until just now. Thank you. I'm sorry if there was any distracting thing in the back. All right, there we go. All right, don't worry. All is well. Yeah, Salu says, Aurora, the words are tricky, but I get what you mean. Thank you so much. That is what I ask for all students in this class and everybody who's watching these videos. It is so challenging for me to put these abstract concepts into words and not have them be squashed. It's kind of like someone gives you a lovely bouquet, but to get it into your house, you got to like squash it and slip it under the door. It's like, oh man, like that takes away a lot of the beauty of the flowers. So yeah, that's why I mostly paint and make sculptures of things. So I always ask everyone who's listening, please listen for the meaning beyond the words, like my real intention. Try to tune into that and not merely the flapping of my moving mouth parts, because, you know, I have intention in all of this, and I'm trying to be as accurate as I can. And still sometimes my brain chooses the wrong word, and sometimes I choose the right word, yet it is being interpreted within this socio-cultural context as different than what I'm actually saying. It's a long recording. It's going to be a long upload. So let me end this for right now with the thanks and appreciation to everybody. Oh, wait, there's more questions. Joelle says, is that maybe what X-Men is all about? Oh my goodness, you're wonderful. Yes. Or is X-Men more about genetic manipulation? I think the X-Men movies do a good job of preparing human society right now for the idea that you can be a positive mutant. I'm a positive mutant. I'm not giving you guys too much personal medical information if I tell you that I literally had my genes tested more than 10 years ago. And it was for medical purposes. And some of my information came back as having mutations. They're called like whatever, they don't harm the body. They're just mutations that make you different, but they don't necessarily harm the functioning of your body. Yeah, so I'm like a benevolent mutant, and I would encourage everyone here to be so, that you can rearrange the Rubik's Cube of your DNA in the present format into something that has never been done before. That would be like being a mutant, and achieve what is considered superpowers. The big takeaway is, though, you don't have to use technology to do any of this stuff. You need like the sun. That's all you need. Your body, and you need the sun. Like, you don't need that. And I know those movies are very violent because I watch them, but they are like, being a superhero does not have to be about, you know, being violent and like punching people and having claws that stab them and stuff like that. But very good question. Thank you very much. Yes, let me wrap up this level 2, and thank you very much for the wonderful questions and comments in the chat, and for everyone who takes the time to watch this, and for exposing yourself to these ideas so that you can change the structure of your body and the structure of your DNA, and achieve greater degrees of freedom that wouldn't have been available otherwise. So thank you for recording now.